You could help a woman, any woman, maybe it's you, your friend, your neighbor, your daughter, your mother. If you could help her find her breast cancer early while it's still curable before it gets to a late stage when it's not curable, would you do that? Of course you would. No one's going to say no to that. But how would you do it, and what would you do? So for all of our runs for the cure, the race for the pink ribbon, all the football games where the people are wearing pink socks, and all of those things, especially that we're seeing now in Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we still do not have a cure for late-stage breast cancer. And in fact, this chart shows that we really haven't made as much progress as you might think over the last 2 decades. We're still losing the same amount of women to breast cancer this year and next year that we lost in 2000. So 2 decades, and we really haven't made any progress at all, unfortunately. So I think that really leaves us where we've always been, and that is to focus on early detection. Early detection is key to survival. That's always been true, and it's actually still true. And really, that's why the mammogram was invented, right? To find those cancers early. And as a matter of fact, back before we were doing mammograms in the last century, we were losing 72,000 women a year to breast cancer. And now we've kind of settled in at 42,000 or so. This is the status quo that we are accepting by default. Mammogram has a lot to do with the reduction from way back in that previous century to now, but for all the lives that it saved, it still has its shortcomings. And that has to do everything with breast density. I hope that you all know all about this already, but for those of you that don't, I will do just a quick overview of what density is. Our breasts are made up of 2 things, fat and things that aren't fat, like the milk ducts and all that give us, the production of milk. Fat is not particularly white on a mammogram, but all those other things are. And so these are the 4 categories of breast density that you will get when you get a mammogram. You'll be given one of those categories. The ones on the left, A and B, are from women who don't have very much of the glands and milk-producing things, but they have a lot of fat. And so fortunately for them, breast cancer is very easy to see in those images. Breast cancer is white on one of those images, so it shows right up. And as a matter of fact, mammogram is a great screening technique for those people. It finds about 98% of the cancers for people who do not have dense breasts. But those who do, in the C and D category, it gets to be very problematic because the density is white on the mammogram and so is the cancer. So it's very, very difficult to see. As a matter of fact, the mammogram will find less than half of all cancers in dense breasts. And just to make it worse, those women with dense breasts are more likely to get breast cancer than those who don't. A woman who has a classification of a D is 4 to 6 more times more likely to get breast cancer than the woman who is an A. This creates kind of that perfect little storm whereby the women who need it the most, the mammograms serve the least. And one radiologist kind of described it as trying to find a white bunny in a snowstorm. It's just extremely difficult. So very, very murky. And this is the shortcoming of mammography. And I really feel like it's hard on the radiologists to actually do this day in, day out. I actually talked to one the other day, and he said, it's really pretty disconcerting to read these mammogram reports and have to say no cancer found, all the while knowing that there could be cancer there that I can't see. These radiologists are highly trained and they have a lot of experience, but we cannot expect them to see things that are not seeable. Very, very difficult. I just wish they had better pictures to look at. don't you? I am a woman who would fall under the C category, and 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, 2 months after a clear mammogram and an ultrasound. It simply was just not seeable. No one's fault. That's just a result of the technology that we're now using. And so that's why I'm here today. I want you to know what I only knew after the fact. I do not want my story to become your story. So that's why I am here with you tonight. But I do have some good news. Just Monday, I got a full body scan, and there is no evidence of active disease at this time. So. It is cause for celebration, and believe me, I do that. But it's also important to remember that for other women who have metastatic breast cancer, they do not fare as well, and they will not fare as well. So it's important to remember that. So it turns out that the medical community has known about this density issue for a very long time. It's been a very well-kept secret until a few pioneers, a few years ago, decided they were going to out this. They weren't having it anymore. And they dedicated their careers and their lives to getting the word out about density and getting legislation passed in every state requiring them to tell us about our density. We owe those women a lot. They have gotten the ball rolling on this. After I was diagnosed, I went to the Mayo Clinic for a second opinion because everything was so confusing, as I'm sure you can imagine. And quickly they confirmed the diagnosis. However, I found out there that they had invented and were using a breast cancer screening technique that finds 300 to 400% more cancers in women with dense breast tissue than 2D mammography or even 3D mammography. And I thought that was really exciting, but I also thought it was a little frightening because what that tells us then is there's so much not being found now if you don't have that technology or something similar. It's called molecular breast imaging, MBI for short. So this thing is FDA approved and commercially available. So I thought to myself, probably the same thing you're thinking. Why don't we have it? Why have I never heard of that? Why have most doctors never heard of it? Kind of a mystery. And I've spent a year and a half trying to answer that question. And I would love to have the zinger line, the big reveal to you as to why this is happening. But I really don't. What I can say is I believe it's complicated. You know, there can be a lot of reasons. Change is difficult. This is a disruptive technology, and every disruptive technology, no matter what industry that you're in, comes up against resistance. It could be something like what I call the NIH syndrome, not invented here. You know, it could be that they really haven't been forced to change, so they're not going to change. But no matter what the reasons are, what's happening all the while? Women's cancers are growing undetected. About a year ago, I decided that I was going to take a trip, quite a long trip. And I walked something called the Camino de Santiago, and I did this for a couple of reasons. One is I wanted to raise awareness and money for a study that they were doing at the Mayo Clinic on molecular breast imaging, but I also had some reckoning to do internally with myself about being able to handle the not knowing of my future. I don't know how long my remission's going to last. I don't know what we'll be doing next. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know what that's going to be like. I don't know any of that. So that's really the main reason why I took the trip. Now, some of you may have heard of this. It's the same route that Martin Sheen walked, or his character walked in the movie The Way. And it starts over the border in France, and you walk all the way across northern Spain, and you end at a cathedral in Santiago de Compostela that supposedly houses the bones of St. James, the apostle of Jesus, his sort of right-hand person, playmate, probably cousin. And just between me and you, I'm a little iffy on the bone thing. I mean, really, it's a long time, 2,000 years, to keep track of a bunch of old bones. They've been lost, they've been buried, they've been found, they've been moved, I don't know. But really, it doesn't matter, because that's the destination. What this is really about is the journey. So I began walking, and what you do when you walk the Camino de Santiago is you walk and think and walk while you think. Well, you get it, because that's really all there is to do. That's what it's for. So by the time I made it out to the middle, it's called the Meseta. It's flat, it's lonely. You can see hay and wheat all around 360 for as far as you can see. The sky is beautiful. And I came to the realization out there that my calves were amazing. I gotta tell you, I loved it. I loved it. I felt invincible from the knee down. I don't know about the rest of me, but it was great. And just let me tell you, once you stop walking 15 miles a day, your calves go right back to normal. But I'll always remember it. Obviously, my calves have nothing to do with what we're talking about. We just needed a humor break. This is heavy stuff. So back at it now. So when I was out in the middle, wheat and hay all around, no one else around, I finally did come to some peace with not knowing. I decided that I would not let not knowing about the future rob me of the joy that I was going to have today. So I really kind of created this box over here. And that box is for all my not knowing. And I separate it from my regular life. It stays over here nice and neat, and I go on with my life. It's a coping mechanism, obviously, but it works for me. But I'll tell you what else for me has to go in the box. And that is the fact that no less women have died from breast cancer over the last 2 decades in the box. The fact that we have a technology that's FDA approved and available to all of us, and none of us even know about it, to find so many more breast cancers. It has to go in the box. The fact that so many women, smart, intelligent, tenacious, persistent women, worked so hard for years just to get to the point where we are told whether we're dense or not, that has to go in the box. All things that would bother me to death if they were in front of me all the time, go in the box. 2.5 weeks later, I am standing in front of the cathedral where St. James' bones are, or not. And I've decided that I'm keeping the box because the box really works for me. That's for all the not knowing. But I also decided that I would share with anybody who's willing to listen what I do know in the here and now. And what I know in the here and now is this. There are many breast cancers out there that are undetected, left to grow right now. We know this. It has to be, it's a statistical fact. We must do better, we can do better, and we aren't doing better. That's what I know. So what do we do about it? The status quo is so hard. It's a huge rock to push, to move. There are so many things involved in this. What do we do? This poor fellow is not moving that rock at all by himself. Even if I could get those calves back, if I joined him, we still couldn't move the rock. But together, we may be able to move the rock. We may be able to shake the status quo. Well, what does that really look like? It looks like you and you and you all, first of all, finding out your own density if you don't know. It's in your mammogram report if you have gotten one, but if you haven't gotten one, you must get a mammogram. That's where it starts. If you're dense, make a move. Talk to your doctor. Find out what additional screening you would like to get and find out where that is. Third, I call insist and persist. It may be really difficult. There may be many calls, many things that you have to do in order to get the screening that you think you need. Insist and persist. If there are enough of us, if you, your cousin, your aunt, and it fans out all over everywhere, start doing a lot of insisting and a lot of persisting. And we all join that guy and we start shoving and shoving the status quo. I think that rock is going to roll. And so that's what I propose that we do. It's the power of us. It's the power of the collective us that will move this forward. So I ask you, if you could help a woman find her breast cancer early, when it's curable, would you do it? Of course you would, and now you know how. So that my story doesn't become your story, and more women with breast cancer become survivors. In the true spirit of TED, I feel like this is an idea worth sharing, and I hope you do too.